Greetings and welcome to another Pokemon 2019 or Pokemon Journeys anime episode review. This time I'm talking about episode 104, so let's get to it. Before I get to the episode itself, however, I do want to point out that the opening was once again updated to include Pokemon that Go recently caught. The Froakie that he caught in episode 103 now appears in the section that shows Ghost Pokemon from the Kalos region. It is cool that they continue to update the opening. But on to the actual episode now. Episode 104 begins in the stadium that hosted the Kalos League, which is of course located in Lumio City. Ash is in one of the locker rooms of the stadium getting ready for his battle against Drasna. Wikstrom soon enters the room and he greets Ash, who is surprised and happy to see Wikstrom. Wikstrom soon notices Sirfetch'd and Wikstrom is delighted when he sees that Farfetch'd evolved. He tells Sirfetch'd that Ash is lucky to have it, and that it should not forget its knightly spirit. Sirfetch'd is like, "I will not, sir." Wikstrom then wonders who's that Pokemon when he sees Dracovish. I love that Dracovish turns around like, "Yes, you called?" But just as Ash is about to tell Wikstrom about Dracovish, Drasna walks into the room with Altaria. I love that Altaria uses its wings to hug Pikachu, who is very happy because of this. This sure looks comfortable and it is very cute. Drasna then comments that Pikachu is adorable, and she then greets Dracovish, saying that she has heard a lot about Dracovish, and that it is a pleasure to meet Dracovish. Ash meanwhile is shocked and nervous because Drasna is here. Wikstrom says that Drasna wanted to meet Ash before the battle. So Drasna greets Ash and she tells Altaria to greet Ash as well. Altaria greets Ash by bowing and by spinning, which is adorable. Drasna then says, "Isn't Altaria lovely?" And she reveals that Altaria is her most precious partner. Drasna then says that both her and Altaria are so pleased because they get to meet Ash and his Pokemon. Though Altaria clearly does not share this sentiment, judging by its cocky expression when it looks at Sirfetch'd and Dracovish. Ash then says he is also happy because he got to meet Drasna and Altaria. Ash and Drasna then shake hands, but Drasna soon drops her cutesy and innocent act, and she squeezes Ash's hand while saying with a menacing expression that she saw Ash's win record, and that his winning streak is over as of today. Man, talk about intimidating your opponent. I love that Pikachu's like, "What is going on here?" Drasna then flips the cutesy and innocent switch back on and she happily walks away, saying, "Well then, have a wonderful day now." I love that Ash and Wikstrom are both shaken by what just happened, and that they both have a face that says, "I definitely don't want to mess with her." Ash says that he was really nervous, while Wikstrom says that Drasna has some incredible tenacity. And yes, I agree, though I do love that Drasna's personality changes so dramatically from cute and innocent to menacing and evil. On her way to the battlefield, Drasna wonders what Altaria thinks of Ash and his Pokemon. Altaria's like, "Ha, they are nothing to worry about," while laughing boisterously. Drasna then says that she believes that she will really enjoy the battle with a wicked smile. We are less than 3 minutes into the episode and Drasna is already an amazing character that I wanted to see a lot more of. Quite impressive, I must say. Nice going, Drasna. So the episode then cuts to the battlefield where we see that Clement, Bonnie, and Go are among the audience, which is not surprising of course, and we see that Wikstrom will be watching the battle as well, but from a more exclusive location. The announcer then introduces Drasna, who enters the battlefield while happily greeting the audience. The announcer reveals Drasna's rank, which is 12, 3 higher than Ash's rank. Go comments that Drasna looks very kind, but Clement says that this is absolutely not the case, that Drasna fools everyone with her smile. Something that we, the audience, already know very well. Bonnie then says, "You can trust what my brother is saying about Drasna since he did not stand a chance against her." I love that Deden is like, "Yeah, that's right." This reveals that Clement had a battle with Drasna at some point and he was wrecked. Clement says that Bonnie did not need to mention this, showing that he does not want others to know about this battle with Drasna. I do wonder why Clement battled Drasna since he is a gym leader and she is a member of the Elite Four. Maybe the Elite Four go around testing the gym leaders or something like this? Sadly, the reason is not revealed in this episode. The announcer then introduces Ash, who soon enters the battlefield. Ash and Pikachu joyfully greet the audience. The announcer says that the battle will be 2-on-2, and I just want to point out that in the end, the Ultra class definitely has no set format, since Ash vs. Bolgner was 3-on-3. Ash vs. B was also 3-on-3, but Ash vs. Marnie was 1-on-1. And now, Ash vs. Drasna will be 2-on-2. I bet that the format changes to fit the needs of the story. It's worth noting that we have only seen 1-on-1 battles thus far in the Master class. But I bet that this will change as well once Ash makes it into the Masters 8. Because again, the format needs to match what the story needs, and Ash's battles need to be much bigger and more involved, especially in the Master class. Therefore, 1-on-1 battles simply will not do. So the Rotom drone then tells Ash and the Drasna to send out their first Pokemon at the same time. Ash and the Drasna follow this command, which means that the battle will finally begin. Drasna's first Pokemon is Noivern, while Ash's first Pokemon is Sirfetch'd. Clement wonders if Ash and the Sirfetch'd will be okay since Noivern has the advantage based on typing, which is something I pointed out in every previous video on this episode. Ash tells Sirfetch'd to keep its eyes on Noivern. Sirfetch'd nods in agreement and it assumes a battle-ready stance. The battle then finally begins. Ash calls for Brutal Swing, while Drasna calls for Super Fang. Both Pokemon rush each other and I love that Sirfetch'd uses its shield to block Super Fang and then it simply smacks Noivern with Brutal Swing, much to Drasna's surprise. Also, this reveals that Sirfetch'd did not forget Brutal Swing when they learned the Meteor Assault. In my previous video on this episode, I said that Sirfetch'd should forget either Brutal Swing or Night Slash, because it does not need two Dark-type moves. So I will assume that Night Slash was forgotten. Though this episode does not reveal what move Sirfetch'd forgot, since it only uses Meteor Assault and Brutal Swing in this battle. So Drasna is shocked by what Sirfetch'd just did, though she soon says that the maneuver was very impressive. She says this with such class and elegance that it is honestly charming. Sirfetch'd then assumes a battle stance confidently since it clearly feels like it has the advantage after it landed such a good hit with Brutal Swing, and Ash energetically congratulates Sirfetch'd, showing that Ash also believes that they have the upper hand. Drasna does not take kindly to this and she says oh my or ara ara, do not underestimate us, and she calls for Boom Burst. Drasna's use of ara ara when she speaks makes her an even better character. So Noivern unleashes a powerful Boom Burst that Sirfetch'd is able to block with its shield. But the Boom Burst soon shatters the battlefield, which launches Sirfetch'd and shards of the battlefield into the air. While in midair, a piece of the battlefield hits Sirfetch'd and Sirfetch'd drops its shield as a result. Drasna smiles ominously while saying, "You see, now you can't guard anymore." Ash tells Sirfetch'd to pick up its shield. Sirfetch'd runs towards the shield, but before it can get it back, Noivern uses Dragon Pulse, which hits Sirfetch'd, and Sirfetch'd ends up losing its sword as well as a result. So Sirfetch'd is left completely defenseless. Seeking to exploit Sirfetch'd's inability to fight back, Drasna, while smiling, calls for another Boom Burst. Noivern fires off the attack, and while Sirfetch'd tries to stay strong so that it can endure the hit, it is crushed into the ground by the sheer force of the Boom Burst. The battlefield shatters once again, which launches debris into the air. However, Sirfetch'd's sword and shield are launched upwards as well. Pikachu notices this and he notifies Ash, who tells Sirfetch'd that it is now or never. This is Sirfetch'd's chance to get its sword and its shield back. Sirfetch'd stands up, it jumps, and it uses the flying debris to reclaim its sword and shield. I have to say that Sirfetch'd looks really weird without its sword and shield. It looks plain, empty, and simple. Basically, it looks just like a normal duck. Ash is like, "Oh right, that's it. Good job," when he sees that Sirfetch'd got its equipment back. And I love that Wickstrom does the same thing as Ash. It's clear who Wickstrom is rooting for in this battle, and it isn't for his fellow Elite Four member. Sirfetch'd then starts to glow yellow, showing its intent to use Meteor Assault. Drasna's like, "Oh yeah, well how about this?" and she calls for Dragon Pulse. which Noivern gets ready to use. Ash calls for Meteor Assault, honoring Sirfetch'd's wish to use the move. I love that since Noivern is flying, Sirfetch'd has to look up and adjust its position, so that it can launch itself accurately to hit its target. Sirfetch'd is like an anti-air turret. After locking into its target, Sirfetch'd unleashes the Meteor Assault. Recognizing the danger that Sirfetch'd's attack poses, Drasna tells Noivern to switch to defense. And so, Noivern uses its wings to block the Meteor Assault, which is honestly shocking. Going into the episode, I am sure that most of us expected that Meteor Assault would absolutely wreck whatever it is used on. Therefore, it is quite surprising, disappointing, and disheartening that Meteor Assault fails. It's also kind of unbelievable. I get that Noivern has huge wings and a resistance to fighting type moves. But seriously, you're telling me that its wings can completely nullify a move that demolished Luxray in the last episode? Sirfetch'd was like a locomotive ramming into a tree here, and yet Noivern is able to stop said locomotive without even being pushed back. Like seriously, come on, at least have Noivern shake a little. Instead, Noivern is completely unaffected and it fires off the Dragon Pulse it was readying before, which hits the still airborne Sirfetch'd, who crashes into the ground. I do love, however, that Drasna confidently and happily says Noivern well done with the defense. Now, Sirfetch'd is clearly not in a good condition, but it still manages to stand back up, despite struggling to do so. Drasna compliments Sirfetch'd for being so robust. Now at this point I was on the edge of my seat, wondering if Sirfetch'd would be defeated without defeating a single opponent, and without being able to use Meteor Assault successfully. Thankfully, Ash makes the right call. He withdraws Sirfetch'd, saying that Sirfetch'd shouldn't push itself, that it should rest up for now, and that it will have its chance later. Now this was surprising since I thought that they would stick to the established matchups, Sirfetch'd vs Noivern and Dracovish vs Altaria. I did not think that this would be altered. Clement comments that Ash made the right choice since Meteor Assault leaves the user immobilized for a while. Go says that Ash is smart and he wonders who Ash will use next, which is odd since Ash clearly said last episode that he would use Sirfetch'd and Dracovish for the battle. Ash then says that since Sirfetch'd was able to damage Noivern, Dracovish should be able to defeat Noivern. Yeah, but since Meteor Assault was nullified, Noivern just took one hit, so it's not like Noivern is particularly hurt or anything. So Ash sends out Dracovish, and I love that Dracovish is like, hello everyone, here I am. Now the announcer displays Dracovish on the big screen of the stadium, and he says that Dracovish is a rare Pokemon from the Galar region. In the previous episode, Clement and Bonnie were both surprised when they saw Dracovish. And they both had to be told how rare Dracovish is. In this episode, Wickstrom was also like, who's that Pokemon? And Ash was probably going to tell him about Dracovish's rarity. And now the announcer shows Dracovish to everyone and he mentions how rare it is. I guess that no one in the Kalos region has ever seen or heard of Dracovish. Well, except for Drasna, who is happy to see Dracovish, and she says, "Ah, there you are, Dracovish. I have been quite eager to battle you." I love that Dracovish dances around, which is adorable, especially with the sounds it makes when it does this. I will keep saying this over and over again. Dracovish might just be the cutest, most endearing, and most lovable Pokemon ever. Drasna then unwisely chooses to challenge Dracovish to a battle of jaws and biting by calling for Super Fang, which Dracovish counters with Ice Fang. Both Pokemon clash and they are both pushed back. Noivern clearly takes some good damage, which is understandable since it has a double weakness to ice. While Dracovish seems to be okay, though Clement mentions that Super Fang cuts the target's stamina in half, which is an interpretation of the fact that in the games, Super Fang deals damage equal to 50% of the target's current HP. Noivern soon falls to one knee due to the damage it took from Ice Fang. So Drasna withdraws Noivern and she sends out Altaria instead. This substitution was not surprising, since Dracovish vs Altaria is the promised matchup. Now it's funny that Go uses his Pokédex on Altaria. The Pokédex says that Altaria has a kind disposition, but if it is provoked, then it will threaten its opponents with shrill cries, before attacking them without mercy. Has a kind disposition, but is actually menacing and merciless. Why does this sound so familiar? Oh, that's right, this description applies to Drasna as well. I can see why she likes Altaria so much, why they get along so well, and why Altaria is Drasna's most precious partner. I also love that Altaria starts to sway from side to side, all cutesy-like, looking really innocent in the process. All it needs to do is whistle to complete the "I am definitely not a merciless evil creature" act. It's funny that Altaria's swaying causes Dracovish to become enamored with Altaria, because as shown in the previous episode, Dracovish is basically a puppy that is attracted to toys that move around. So, Dracovish rushes Altaria, much to Ash's dismay. This sudden rush leads to this absolute masterpiece of a response from Drasna. Go wonders what Dracovish is doing. Clement and Bonnie both say that Dracovish is attracted to things that sway, which is why it was biting the leak in the previous episode. This is what I mentioned earlier. Ash decides to use Dracovish's rush to their advantage, and he calls for Ice Fang. I love that a jaw-based transition is used to cut to Dracovish here, which is a nice detail. But Altaria uses Cotton Guard, which blocks the Ice Fang, and Dracovish is pushed back. Drasna says aren't Altaria's plumes lovely? They can even be used to avoid heavy damage. Now Go mentions that Altaria and Noivern are both very good at using their wings for defense. Bonnie says that this is exactly what got her brother. Clement once again says that Bonnie does not need to talk about his battle with Drasna, showing that he really wants to keep this hidden away. Drasna then smiles as she reveals her keystone. It's cool how the horns around the keystone flip up. Drasna of course uses her keystone to Mega Evolve her Altaria. I love that Drasna opens her eyes when she is Mega Evolving Altaria, and I also love that she claps her hands and arms together to initiate the Mega Evolution. So the transformation works and Altaria successfully Mega Evolves into Mega Altaria. So after witnessing Altaria's transformation, Dracovish is now facing Mega Altaria, though this only makes Dracovish look at Altaria in amazement, like, oh wow. Wickstrom comments that Drasna is clearly having fun. Now it is odd that Wickstrom has a flashback filter on him, even though this is not a flashback. Bonnie then comments that Mega Altaria is very pretty. Now I love that Dracovish starts jumping because it is so happy when it sees Mega Altaria. Seriously, I cannot stop smiling and or laughing when Dracovish is on screen. Drasna then calls for Sky Attack, which Altaria begins to charge. Ash decides to fight the Sky Attack head on and he calls for Fish's Rend. However, Altaria flies outside of the reach of Dracovish, so Fish's Rend does not find its mark. Dracovish then tries to use Ice Fang instead, but it just gets hit with Sky Attack before it can attack. It is funny though that because of Sky Attack, Dracovish is launched into the air with X's in its eyes, showing that Dracovish took some good damage. Altaria then uses Play Rough, though it looks like Altaria is using Play Gentle instead due to its soft plumage. The way that Dracovish reacts to the attack definitely corroborates this. I love that when Drasna calls for Play Gentle, Play Rough, her motions make it look like she is telling Altaria to give Dracovish the meanest tickle ever. Because of Play Gentle, Dracovish is left too mesmerized to fight back. It's adorable how Dracovish has its fins on its face, like oh my god, so soft. Ash soon smiles because he gets an idea when he looks at Altaria's plumage. Clement, Bonnie, and Go all realize that Ash is smiling, so they all realize that Ash just thought of one of his crazy strategies that surpasses the imagination. Ash has Dracovish use Water Gun, and Drasna counters by calling for another Sky Attack, hoping that Altaria will block the Water Gun, which does work. But much to Drasna's surprise, this is exactly what Ash wanted. since Altaria's plumes end up soaking wet, which nullifies both their defensive power and the sky attack that Altaria was charging up. Now I have to say that Altaria looks very funny here, and this reminded me of that one Altaria from the Sun and Moon series. Drasna then angrily opens her eyes yet again to say to Ash, "You have quite the nerve." She clearly does not like what happened to her precious Altaria. Hoping to exploit Altaria's inability to defend itself, Ash calls for Dragon Rush, which is of course a huge mistake, and Drasna smiles wickedly with her eyes open, because Ash just messed up real good. Clement does try to stop Ash, but it's too late. Dracovish hits Altaria with Dragon Rush, which, as expected, does nothing. Now I do love this shot of Altaria, which is absolutely hilarious. Altaria looks like it is saying, "What, am I a joke to you?" While Altaria dries itself with some fancy and stylish spinning, Drasna explains to a confused Ash that when Altaria Mega evolves, it becomes a Fairy-type Pokemon, and she says that Ash did exactly what she expected him to do. So she has clearly studied Ash carefully, since she knows that he tends to forget about typings. Also, it's interesting that when I said that I wanted the Dracovish to learn Dragon Rush or Outrage for this battle, someone left a comment saying that if Dracovish really battles Altaria, then it can't learn Dragon Rush or Outrage since Drasna will Mega Evolve Altaria, and Mega Altaria is part Fairy type, meaning that it's immune to Dragon type attacks, so Dracovish would not be able to use its new move. This is a very valid point, of course, but I said that knowing Ash, he might still end up calling for Dragon Rush against Mega Altaria, and in the end, this is exactly what happened, which is just classic Ash. Altaria then uses Breaking Swipe, and Dracovish counters with Ice Fang. Both Pokemon clash, which causes an explosion. But while Altaria is alright, Dracovish is knocked back, and it is clearly exhausted. So Ash decides to withdraw Dracovish, and he sends out Sirfetch'd instead. I honestly did not expect to see so many substitutions in this battle, so I was pleasantly surprised. Now Dracovish does not stay in its Pokeball, however, because it wants to root for its friend Sirfetch'd, which is just so adorable. With cheering from its friend, Sirfetch'd gets ready to battle. Drasna says that she loves the fighting spirit that Ash and his Pokemon display, so she decides to answer in turn and she calls for Breaking Swipe. Sirfetch'd counters with Meteor Assault. Sirfetch'd uses a ramp made of debris to launch itself towards Altaria, and it clashes with Altaria, which causes a massive explosion. Altaria surprisingly ends up knocked out as a result. I really could not believe that Altaria was taken out this easily and with little excitement or build-up. Sure, Meteor Assault is a powerful move, and Altaria did take some damage from battling Dracovish. But still, Altaria was not that hurt, and Mega Altaria has a resistance to fighting. And yet, it was taken out by Meteor Assault, and there really was no hype or build-up to this moment. Sirfetch'd just used Meteor Assault unceremoniously, and Altaria was just knocked out as a result. Simple as that. So this was a very underwhelming and unexciting end for Altaria. Drasna is shocked when she sees that Altaria is defeated. Sirfetch'd then gets ready to keep battling, and Dracovish is like, "Yeah, you did great. Keep it up. You can do it." But Sirfetch'd collapses, and it's knocked out on the spot. Another lackluster knockout. Now I get it, Sirfetch'd was hurt badly by Noivern, and it used 2 Meteor Assaults, which require a lot of energy. But come on, at least have Sirfetch'd go down in battle with honor, like a true knight. Now I love that Dracovish has its fins to its face, like, "Oh no, it can't be." Ash is, of course, shocked because Sirfetch'd is out, while Dracovish is like, "Oh no, my friend." I love that Wikstrom ends up crying while exclaiming that Sirfetch'd is a true knight, because it displayed such vigor by standing back up for the sake of its lord. I just love how much Wikstrom cares for Sirfetch'd. Ash then withdraws Sirfetch'd, but like Dracovish, Sirfetch'd does not stay in its Pokeball, because it wants to root for its friend. I love that Dracovish is like, "Oh friend, you are back." And Sirfetch'd is like, "Yeah, it's my turn to root for you. You can do it, friend." Though Sirfetch'd cannot remain standing for long. But Ash and the Dracovish are happy because Sirfetch'd is doing its best to root for Dracovish, and it's endearing how happy they all are. It's heartwarming how much Dracovish and the Sirfetch'd now care for each other. Drasna then sends out Noivern and she angrily says that Ash is truly strong for pushing her this far, but that this ends now. I love that she says this while opening her eyes fully and her expression becomes serious and evil. This honestly reminded me of both Ibais and Greeble from Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD respectively, since initially they both have their eyes closed, and they appear to be gentle and innocent, but they eventually open their eyes and they reveal their true evil selves, when it's time to have a decisive battle with the player. Ash says that he and his Pokemon will be the winners, and so the final showdown begins, with suitably epic music to go with it. Ash calls for Dragon Rush while Drasna calls for Dragon Pulse. I love that Drasna's eyes are still open as she commands Noivern. She is basically in serious no more playing around mode now. So Dracovish is hit with Dragon Pulse before it can use Dragon Rush, and Dracovish is hurt badly as a result. Drasna keeps the pressure on by calling for Boon Burst. While her eyes are unfortunately closed again here, she does open one of them for a split second, which is cool too. Dracovish, who is still on the ground, is hit by Boon Burst and by debris as well, which keeps Dracovish pinned to the ground. But Sirfetch'd is like, come on, get up, while screaming, and this gives Dracovish the strength to stand back up, even though the Boom Burst is still hitting Dracovish. Ash then exclaims with all his heart, Dracovish, it's time to finish this, which is just so epic. Dracovish then roars and it rushes forth with a full-power Dragon Rush, breaking through the Boom Burst in the process, which is also amazingly epic. Drasna is taken aback by this, but she calls for Dragon Pulse, and I absolutely love how the dragon-shaped energy of both attacks grow and they clash with each other for a while before a massive explosion ends the engagement. Now this is how you have a decisive final showdown between two Pokemon. Ash and Drasna, with one eye open, shield themselves from the massive explosion. Yes, I definitely do love when Drasna opens her eyes, which is why I mention it every time it happens. When the smoke clears, Dracovish and Noivern are still standing for the classic Pokemon anime moment where they leave us in suspense as to who won. After a while, Noivern is the one that falls and the one that ends up knocked out. Now I honestly thought, for a split second here, that the battle would end in a draw, because of all the twists and the turns that the battle had. But then I was like, no, Ash will win for sure, because I was confident throughout the episode that this would be the case. So, Ash is the winner. This is the first time that he defeats a member of the Elite Four, and it's cool that while his previous battle in this stadium, which was against Talon, ended in a loss, this time Ash was able to get a decisive victory in the very same stadium. I love that they show that Wickstrom is crying while smiling and nodding his head in agreement with the result of the battle. I also love that Dracovish happily hugs and bites Ash when Ash congratulates Dracovish, while Sirfetch'd is like, we really did it, team. Drasna then says, ara ara, or oh dear, it seems like we lost. What a shame. But you did great, Noivern, and she pets Noivern, who is happy. Though Noivern is looking kind of flat. I guess that Dracovish flattened Noivern with Dragon Rush. The screen of the stadium then reveals Ash's new rank, which is 9, the top rank in the Ultra class, and it is just one rank below the lowest rank in the Master class. So, Ash is basically standing right in front of the door to the Master's 8. The episode then cuts to the outside of the stadium. Drasna congratulates Ash and Ash thanks Drasna. They both shake hands and Drasna mentions that the upcoming battles will not be so easy. And Ash says that he will do his best. Drasna then says that Sirfetch'd and Dracovish are way too charming, so she decides to cheer for Ash and his Pokemon. I love that she says this while smiling and blushing, which is sweet and adorable. Like a classic yandere, she is now all cutesy and nice after being defeated, which means that Ash earned her respect, support, and admiration. Wikstrom then says to Ash, continue to work resolutely towards your dream. Bonnie then stares intently at Drasna and, for a second I was like, wait, what is she up to? Then I remembered the classic running gag where Bonnie would ask girls to marry Clement. But then I thought, wait, surely she wouldn't try this with Drasna, right? But surprisingly she does. She says, Miss Drasna, marry my brother s'il vous plaît. Which shocks everyone except for Pikachu, who is delighted instead. I guess that Pikachu's like, yeah, a wedding sounds like fun. Bonnie says that she can't think of a better candidate since Drasna is strong and responsible. In response to this sudden proposal, Drasna says while smiling, ara ara, or oh dear, what am I ever to do? She is clearly not against the idea. But Clement is, and he uses his A-palm arm to pick up Bonnie. The episode ends with Clement running away embarrassed with Bonnie in tow, leaving behind a flustered and blushing Drasna. Which is adorable. Considering everything that I saw in this episode, I would have said yes to marrying Drasna on the spot. I also love that Ash and Wikstrom have the same smile and the same pose. They really are master and disciple. Also, the narrator says that soon Ash will be able to challenge the Master's 8, which might be confirmation that Ash's next opponent will be in the Masterclass. But that's the episode. So overall, this was an amazing episode. Drasna absolutely stole the show for me, as you could probably tell. Because sometimes, she was just so charming, energetic, funny, sweet, and adorable. While other times, she was just evil, scary, menacing, wicked, and dark. I absolutely loved both sides of her personality and the contrast between them. She is definitely a great character and one of my favorite characters in Pokemon Journeys for sure. Hopefully we do get to see her again someday. It was also nice that Wikstrom got so much extra screen time in this episode. He appeared in the previous episode and that could have been the extent of his appearance in this little arc. But instead, they had him greet Ash and the Sirfetch'd, which was nice since Wikstrom got to see that the Farfetch'd he saw so much potential in managed to realize said potential by evolving and becoming stronger and more knightly. It is also cool that during the battle, Wikstrom was rooting for Ash and for Sirfetch'd, instead of cheering for his fellow Elite Four member, and Wikstrom was just so happy with what Sirfetch'd did during the battle and with the fact that Ash won that he even cried, showing just how much he cares for Sirfetch'd and for Ash, which is really nice and cool when you consider that Wikstrom only mentored them for one episode, and yet he grew to care for them so much. I really am glad that Wikstrom was able to have so much extra screen time. As for the battle itself, well, I am kind of mixed on it. And not in a bad way, mind you. I am like 80-20 on the battle, with 80 being I loved it and 20 being I disliked it. The battle was pretty good overall. It was cool to see Sirfetch'd and the Dracovish use their new moves in the battle. It was great to see them battle so hard. The battle had a decent choreography, it was intense, and I love how it kept me on the edge of my seat, because I was convinced that this battle would just follow the classic formula while sticking to the matchups that we knew of weeks ago, meaning that Sirfetch'd would defeat Noivern, Altaria would defeat Sirfetch'd, and Dracovish would defeat Altaria. But instead, Ash and Drasna swapped Pokemon around, and in the end, the matchups ended up being different. Sirfetch'd took out Altaria while Dracovish dealt with Noivern. This made the battle more unpredictable, and I ultimately did not know how the battle would end, which kept me in suspense, especially since Sirfetch'd and Dracovish struggled a lot, and their new moves did not work the first time, which was shocking and unexpected, so I was even afraid that one of them would be defeated. I was confident going into the episode that Ash would win, and that Sirfetch'd and Dracovish would defeat one opponent each. And yet, the episode still made me doubt my prediction, even if only for a little while. The fact that the episode was able to do this shows that the episode ended up playing around just enough with expectations that it managed to keep me on the edge of my seat. It left me wondering how it would all end, which is great. Battles that can do this are the best ones, since you can feel the tension in every move and in every action, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you end up getting more invested in the battle, because you are hoping that Ash and his Pokemon will somehow pull through. So again, the battle was overall very good. My only gripe is that Mega Altaria was taken out way too easily and without any build-up. To make matters worse, Sirfetch'd then fainted from exhaustion, meaning that the showdown between Altaria and the Sirfetch'd was ultimately very anticlimactic and unfulfilling. If only their final clash could have been like the epic showdown that Dracovish and Noivern had. This would have made the entire battle a lot better. Finally, I really like the bond that Sirfetch'd and Dracovish now share. The previous episode began their unlikely friendship, but it was mostly played for laughs. But in this episode, we got to see that Dracovish and the Sirfetch'd genuinely care for each other now, and they respect each other. The way that they both wanted to cheer for the other was very heartwarming, and it made the battle that much more personal. I think that this new friendship was a great addition to this mini arc, and it is a suitable friendship as well, because Ash's only 2 Generation 8 Pokemon now get along so well, which is fitting and cool. Also, their friendship reminded me of Hawlucha and Noivern's friendship in the XY and the C series. I wonder if this was intentional, considering that Sirfetch'd and Dracovish bonded here in the Kalos region as well, and that they both left their Pokeball on their own to look out for each other, in the same stadium where Hawlucha did the same thing for Noivern. Also, Sirfetch'd and Hawlucha are both fighting-type Pokemon based on birds, while Dracovish and Noivern are both dual-type Dragon-type Pokemon with a childish and endearing personality. Plus, Sirfetch'd and Dracovish battle a Noivern. You know what? Forget about wondering if this was intentional, because it has to be, when there is just so many parallels. I see you, writers. You can't trick me. But that's the video, as always. Leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and would like to see more like it, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I love Pokemon and I love making videos on both the anime and the games. Also, please consider clicking the links on screen so that you can check out more videos like this right away. Thank you very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.